But our story is really, while our parents were killed, we were very fortunate. I'm talking about my brother and sister
Yes.
because so many people helped us.
Mm.
So it's in a way it's a very positive story and reflects well on the humanity, the goodness of people
Yes.
versus the evil.
Mm. Both of your parents were from Romania, and they moved
Right.
to Paris in 1928. That's the father, and the mother moved 2 years later after him to
Correct.
Paris. And the father was a tailor, and the mother was a medical worker. She worked at the office. Um, and then, when the war started, um, the mother, obviously the father was sent to Auschwitz and he died in Auschwitz, and the mother.
She was a housewife, but what happened is because of the danger in Paris, and we realized that, we went to one of the suburbs of Paris and hid out in a home, and I don't recall exactly whose home. I think it was just a home that accepted refugees from Paris.
Right.
And after our father was taken,
Mm-hmm.
then my mother started assisting a doctor who was working with the underground.
I
He
see.
was a resistance. He was part of the resistance. And one day the resistance came to get him. She happened to be in the office and she had no documents because he had taken them to try to counterfeit them so she would be considered legal in Paris. And at that moment, the Gestapo came, took him, and took her. He was actually trying to help.
You and your siblings you ended up in the Children's Rescue Network.
Right.
Yes.
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 There were many times that I felt very lonely and you know, sad because people were leaving me because I couldn't stay with my brother and sister. And while they weren't that much older, I considered them in a way my parents.
I see.
So they kept, being torn away and coming back. But, you know, as I've said, on the whole, I think we were extremely lucky all the way. I I always knew I had them, and uh, the people around me were always like in Switzerland.
Mm.
I loved the family who I lived with,
Yes.
and they treated me like well, it happened to be an older couple because the daughter who actually rescued us from this camp in Switzerland was a nurse, and she went back to work and left me with her parents. So they were old, but they were wonderful. In fact, I lived the life of Heidi up in the Alps with the cows, and it was wonderful. Now, when I left there, I was very upset.
Yes.
No, when I went back to Paris after the war.
Yeah, right.
And then the orphanage wasn't, that friendly because they had a lot of kids. I don't think I made sense of the world. I
Right.
think at that point there were so many changes, starting in 1943
Right.
when I sort of became aware of my surroundings, that there were so many changes that I just expected one change after the other to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like floating on a river,
Right.
and the landscape kept changing, and I just kept looking at it and accepting it.
Mm.
I don't think it was, I'm not saying that it wasn't traumatic, because every change that occurred, caused a separation and then a new environment and new people. But I was fortunate in that the separations were painful, but then I was always welcomed with open arms, so that I, I accepted the new situation.
Mm-hmm.
And while it took me a while to adjust, I knew that was it. I had to do it, and I didn't know if it was going to be permanent or not. But at that moment, when I landed in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a wonderful family, and I adjusted to them, I was just busy living, going to school, learning English. And my parents were loving, gave me everything I wanted. And so, fortunately, while certainly I've had some emotional issues, but everybody does,
Mm-hmm.
they have not affected my life. I did everything I wanted to.
And if
I
you don't
had a
mind
good
me,
career, and, so I was very, very lucky. I think the main issue emotionally was the inverse, or the opposite of what I was saying, which is that I had issues with commitment,
right.
because I never had a commitment. I
Mm.
just kept moving and moving and moving to new situations, new people, new environments. And because of that, I think one of my main issues was committing
Mm-hmm.
and saying, even though I have been married for 41 years, I think I married a wonderful man who doesn't demand a whole lot of emotional connection with me. So I think that was the biggest issue.
How did you overcome it?
I just lived with it.
Right.
I recognized it and I worked around it. I knew that, I had to.
Mm.
So it's not even that I just had to in order to live.
You lost both of your parents, lived in hiding, grew up without siblings, and then lived in the orphanage before that all happened, before you actually found a family. Um, and also, it said that the lesson you have learned is that the family is not just about blood, but it's about people you have, and they who are looking after you, and they're there for you when you need them.
And I think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's not just family. I think it's people in general who are willing to extend themselves. Like, for instance, the young people who helped us escape from France into Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
they gave of themselves. A couple, two or three of them, were actually captured and killed. And all along the way, people went out of their way
Right.
to help me and to help my brother and sister. And I think that's the important thing. Family is part of that, because family also, like my family, took me in, treated me like their own, loved me, and extended themselves. But it was part of a whole spectrum. There are a lot of people did that. The family in Switzerland did that. I adored them. I adored the family in Grand Rapids, and now I'm very, very close with my brother. My sister just passed away about a year ago, but we've become very close. Very difficult thing. I mean, poems, books, everything has been written trying to define love. And I think in my mind it would be making sure that someone you love, and I'm talking now about loving a person,
Yes.
that they are happy and doing everything in your power to make them happy. And I think that would be my definition of loving someone. No,
No.
no. It's interesting, but I have not felt like a victim. I have felt like I can't say a victor, and I can't say a survivor, because it's beyond that. I have felt that I've achieved, and I've won. I've been able to overcome a lot. As I said, I mean, I think the biggest issue emotionally was that because so many changes, I was reluctant to commit.
Yes.
But I did it anyway. I mean, I may not have wanted to, but superficially I did commit. Oh, you know, I'm very angry, not just at them. I mean, the Gestapo, Hitler, Nazis, but I see evil. As much as I have seen a lot of goodness and a lot of people helping others and giving of themselves and their lives, on the other side, I have seen an equal amount of evil.
Right.
Not just Germans and the Gestapo, but all over. I mean, you just have to open up the paper.
Yeah.
And so that I find very depressing and very sad, but unfortunately it seems to be part of humanity. I think what people, well, first of all, people who want to commit suicide, I think, are so depressed that they can't appreciate the beauty of the world, the kindness of their family and their friends. And, these people have to just, if they can, and unfortunately a lot of times they can't, reach into themselves and find, like a spark that wants to be relit and enjoy what there is out in the world, which is tremendous beauty and a lot of kindness and a lot of joy and a lot of good things. And that's what they have to try to connect with. Well, I think if I had maybe been a different person, maybe been smarter, more productive, I would have wanted to maybe go into medicine, even though I was in medicine, but I mean, become a doctor and, try to help people develop cures, make life better for a lot of other people. I think that would have been very satisfying. My sister became a doctor. My brother became an architect. I became an educator. I have a doctorate in education. But I think I would have liked to do that. Well, what it means, I suppose, is, I think if you're talking about not humanity, but people are really, I think, at the top of the ladder in terms of life, in terms of animal life. And I think that being the case, humanity, people, man has a responsibility to care not only for their fellow man, but for all living things. All living things meaning all living animals, nature, the environment, and to try to make it better. Like in the Jewish religion, we have the term tikkun olam, to make the world better. And I think that is the nature of man, that we're born, and part of our mission should be to try to improve the world and make it better. Well, I think good is anything that makes someone happy, but not at the expense of others. In other words, good would be if someone is saved, but not the expense of someone else being killed. But that's a hard equation. And bad would be where someone is totally selfish, considering only his or her own needs, and willing to do damage to others in order to satisfy that. I think that's evil.